Here's the million-dollar question for you. Why is singing so hard and how can you improve? It's a big topic, but I'm going to attempt to break it down for you today. Welcome back to another episode of Singing Tips with LJD Studios, the space where we take difficult singing concepts and break them down so you can actually understand and implement them for better singing. I'm Laura, and today we are going to talk about why it's so difficult to sing and how you can start on the path to improving your singing and feeling more confident. But before we get into it, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and if you haven't already, download my free guide, The Three-Tiered Approach to Becoming a Better Singer, linked in the description. Additionally, if you would like some direct feedback from yours truly on your singing, but you are not quite ready to take the plunge into private lessons, make sure you check out my membership option. It's a low-cost, low-time commitment way to study singing without ever having to ask the question, am I doing it right? All right, so without further ado, let's get into it. Why is singing so freaking hard and what do you have to do to get better at it? The first thing you need to understand about your voice is the muscles involved for vocalizing, even for speaking, none of them are concerned about speaking, about communication, about singing. That is not their primary function, okay? So your vocal cords, right, they are more concerned with breathing, with holding pressure in your body for basic life needs. They are not concerned about speaking even. And they are definitely not concerned about you singing a beautiful high note. But that said, it's kind of amazing that we can recruit these parts of our body to be so expressive and to make art. So that is the amazing thing about it. But keep in mind that that is not what they were primarily designed to do. So you're often asking them to go against the grain of what they are intended to do, particularly when it comes to breathing for singing. So much of what we do in breathing for singing is counter to the way we breathe for the exchange of gases of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So think about it. You've been breathing every day for your entire life in a very certain way. And then when it comes to singing, the way we're going to do that, some things are going to be the same and some things are going to be quite different. And if you're interested in that, I have countless videos on breath support and how it works and the different ways that you can recruit the muscles of your respiratory system to help you sing more freely with greater ease without straining, etc. But the basic premise that you need to understand is you are asking these muscles to operate in a way that is counter to the way they operate to keep you alive, okay? So that's a big ask right there. So that is one reason why singing is often so difficult. Another reason singing is so difficult is because we are dealing with parts of the body that many of these muscle groups that we're working with are technically voluntary muscles, meaning we do have control over them, but they are parts of the body that we are just really unfamiliar with. For instance, the word intercostals. Maybe you've heard that word, maybe not, I don't know. But that's a big set of muscles in between your ribs that are technically voluntary muscles. But when I tell someone to just hold their ribs open while they exhale, that's often a very difficult thing to do. In fact, I have another video on how to do that. That's often a very difficult thing to do because that is not the way they function in your normal breathing patterns, and because you don't necessarily know how to just activate those muscles in the same way that you might know how to just like flex your bicep, for instance. So that's another reason why singing is so difficult. You are not only asking muscles to work in a way that is against their nature, but you also don't have a strong mind-body connection built up with a lot of these muscle groups. So that's another thing that makes it challenging. The final thing that makes it challenging is for many people who have not had a lot of experience singing, you might have a sound in mind of what you are aiming for, but I don't know that you have a sensation in mind. And that is huge. That is such a big part. And that's primarily what I'm going to talk about today in terms of what you need to do in order to start improving your singing. When people first start singing, if you're totally beginning and you feel like things are difficult, it's very much like walking into a dark room that you've never been in before, someone handing you a dart and telling you, there's a dartboard somewhere in this room, hit the bullseye. You're not going to hit it. You don't even know where the dartboard is, let alone where the bullseye is. And that's sort of what's occurring when we're singing. There are parts of your voice that you've likely never been in before. So you don't even know what to aim for, right? And that's where the business of being a voice teacher comes in, because I theoretically know what to aim for, and I can give you suggestions for it might feel like this or try this. And once you have felt it one time, it gets significantly easier. It's not going to say you're going to hit the bullseye every time, but at least now the lights are turned on, right? So if you were to take voice lessons, what happens a lot in the beginning is that it's a lot of like, try this, now try this, now try this, now try this. All of that is aimed at getting you to experience something one time. And sometimes we have to kind of like manipulate or trick the body into it. And then once you have felt it, you can identify it for yourself. And now, again, it's like the lights have been turned on and you at least know where the dartboard is. And you might need to practice a lot before you're going to hit that bullseye consistently, but at least the lights are turned on. So that's why it's so difficult to learn how to sing, especially if it's just something that doesn't feel like it necessarily comes naturally to you. There's something wrong with you though. That doesn't mean that you can't learn, right? It just means you've never been there before. So you might need some help figuring out how to get there. So, okay, how are you going to go about this business of improving now? Number one, experiment as much as you can. If you can't take private lessons, or if you can't join some kind of online membership, presumably you're watching the YouTube videos because you're watching this one. Try them all. Try every single thing that you can, and do not be afraid to make an ugly sound. Make every kind of sound that you possibly can. And as you do that, try to identify what you are feeling, what you are experiencing in your body. As you start to do that, that's how the lights start to come on. That's how you go, oh, I'm feeling this. And then you can decide, like, do I want to keep doing this or do I not want to keep doing this, right? And be as specific as you can possibly be. Saying that something feels good or something feels bad doesn't give you a lot of information. Okay. And I've talked about this in other videos, but it's so important. If you are trying to build up this mind-body connection between your brain and parts of your body that you don't normally talk to, you need to get specific about what you are experiencing. And there's no right, there's no wrong, but you want to be specific, okay? And it has to mean something to you. So you could say that it feels like there are marbles in my mouth. You could say that it feels like I'm going over a waterfall. None of these things mean anything to me, but they are things students have told me that have meant something to them, okay? So you want to get really, really specific about what it is you are feeling and try as many different things as you can, right? So that you can put yourself into as many different vocal configurations as possible to start to experience what might be possible, right? And if you can get somebody to assist you in that process, that's wonderful. You don't have to have that. But if you don't have that, it just means you have to be gentle with yourself and willing to really make some ugly sounds and be curious and try and explore lots and lots of different things. Okay, that's all kind of vague. So now let me give you something a little bit more practical. Having something to aim for is always going to give you more sense of confidence, okay? One thing to aim for is a sensation, and that's what we're talking about there. Another thing that you can start to aim for is a volume level. One of the primary struggles that we have in singing is getting the right balance between air supply and sort of the configuration of the vocal cords, what's happening up here. So what's happening down here with the breath, and then what's happening up here at the level of the throat. That usually is a big piece of what makes things challenging for singers, which has to do with how much oomph you're giving it versus how much you're just sort of relaxing, okay? So one thing I like a lot for combating that struggle is something that I like to call putt-putt singing. And so when you putt-putt, right, you're trying to get the ball. Gosh, I'm not a sports person, but I'm using like a lot of sports analogies today. When you're trying to get the ball in the hole and putt-putt, right, you're trying to be precise. You're trying to get exactly to it. You don't want to go beyond the hole, nor do you want to land shy of it, right? So with singing, right, we want to give just the right amount of air, just the right amount of volume so that we don't strain. And you can strain by under supporting or over supporting. So what I like to do is just put a hand out here, out in front of you. About here. So you don't really want it to be here. That's probably too close. And you don't want it to be way out here. That's too far away. So just a soft bend in the elbow. And imagine that you want the sound to stop right at your hand. It's not going to go past your hand. It's not going to fall short of your hand. It's going to land right at your hand. Okay. So if you're singing happy birthday, I'm not going happy birthday to you. And I'm landing way too far short of my hand. Or happy birthday to you. I'm landing way past it, right? Happy birthday to you. Landing right at it. And what I find helpful is to take my opposite hand and every syllable touch my hand, right? As though I can take my voice and put it here, right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm giving myself something to aim for. So those are my key suggestions, right? Be really curious. Try to define what you are experiencing sensation-wise. That's going to give you one thing to aim for, right? Once you've encountered something that's working, define what it feels like. That gives you something to aim for. And then lastly, aim for a volume level that's not pushed, but that's not too quiet. And you'll help get that right balance between your air supply and what's happening with your vocal cords, which should help eliminate some strain if that's what you're experiencing. That's generally what people complain about when they feel like they're not having success as singers, is they feel like they're straining. So that last one should help you out. So I hope you stayed tuned until the end for that. Thanks for being here. Happy singing.